Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and I've had the privilege of speaking to a man who has literally been up, just trying to do the calculations. I think it's more than 24 hours in a row because he absolutely loves what he does. Mr. Usman Sheikh, all the way from California. How are you, my friend?
Very good. Nice to meet you, Darren. Yeah, I love it.
We were
Living
just
the life.
talking. We were just talking before we press record. It's 4 p.m. in California right now, and this is on a Monday afternoon and Tuesday morning in Melbourne as we record this. But you've literally been up since Sunday afternoon working, and apart from a little bit of a nap in the between, you just. I was just saying, what a typical example of the quintessential entrepreneur.
It's exciting times, Darren. Think about it. We are the first humans that are inducting another form of intelligence to augment our own
Yeah,
into our professional workflow. First wave of humans doing that.
yeah.
The possibilities are endless. The learning curves are supremely steep at this point because everything is changing and everything you discover, literally right now, the limits of your imagination are the limits of your physical reality right now, right? And,
Wow.
and that's kind of, it's very intoxicating and it's very motivating to be able to stay up that amount of time and just think through all the possibilities of what could really make you get to that point. It's very
Yeah,
exciting times.
I love that. The limits of your imagination are the limits of your physical reality. That
Yeah.
sounds very much Carl Jungish.
Carl
That
Jungish or Carl Saganish. One of those
is awesome.
Carls.
Oh, that's sensational. So, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because you not only have a background in technology, but you're the founder and CEO of XIQ or
That's correct.
Multiplayer Intelligence, and personality-driven sales and marketing platform that takes the best of what we do in B2B sales and almost fast tracks it with some intelligence that can be real time in terms of enabling salespeople and sales leaders to really deliver value to their customers. So really looking forward to jumping into this because as you said before, the limits of the imagination, limits of physical reality, we just if we take the lid off that imagination, just imagine what's possible in the next few years.
Yeah. So listen, I mean, today we get a lot of personalization in our business to consumer personas. When I turn on my television, everything is custom tailored to what I usually like, the kind of people I adore seeing, not adore seeing, etc. Everything is being stream fed to my liking and kind of picking it up. And I feel very comfortable, and the younger generations are taking it for granted, as a matter of fact. There's a
Yeah.
generational appreciation to the induction of AI into our lives as well.
Mm.
Right. So I'm probably at the tail end of that. And then there's a whole lot of people in my company that are literally, that's their work for their introduction to the work environment is already AI infused,
Mm.
right? So yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting time in terms of being able to think in. Sorry, I forget what was the question. Let's go back if you don't mind.
Well, just the fact that the limits of our imagination
Yeah.
never more prevalent than the limits of our physical reality today.
Yeah. And so we deserve all this personalization. And if we can't bring that personalization into our professional worlds, then there's a very fine line of professionalism that needs to be drawn. And for you to get personalized in the professional sort of environment,
Mm.
you need to understand their business, you need to understand their industry, you need to understand their pain points, and you need to understand how you're going to add value into their professional lives. That's a pretty tall order,
Yeah.
right? It's not just knowing like what cricket team or baseball team you're going to really support and so on, right? It's a lot more than that. It's about, hey, can you actually help me accelerate what I need to get done in much simpler ways and possibilities? And And in order to get through to that, you have to be able to bring that sort of business acumen to the table. And
Mm,
that's not easy for everybody to bring up.
mm,
But for us and our platform, using AI, for example, we can curate the entire internet and actually do bring around those kind of sentiments and those kind of highlight those ways that you could best communicate to somebody, get through to them,
yeah.
right? Get your stand out from the competition because you managed to say or do something in a manner that your prospective audience would understand.
Mm,
That's the name of the game. And in order to do that today, it takes a lot of time and takes very, very crafty individuals to be able to figure out. And you have very, very few of those in very increasingly less and less time. So that's where you need the help. And when I refer to AI a lot of time as augmented intelligence. There's so many data points out there today that I can pretty much answer just about anything on any person.
yeah.
Okay, it's just a matter of being able to compute them per a particular lens I want to apply on how
Yeah.
we engage with that person, right?
Yeah.
The lens we apply is that of how you could potentially help them sell and market better to their
Yeah.
clients,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, love it. And when you look at what you're doing now, if you go back a few years, you spent a few years at SAP in various different roles. What was it that I guess led you to this? Because I love to delve into people's backgrounds in terms of did you have a vision years ago in terms of what AI potentially could be? And did it naturally lead you down this path, or was there an event that happened that said, you know what, here's an opportunity that we have to take advantage of, and then we jump in all feet?
Yeah, I think a combination of two things. So one, I wanted to create something, and I saw that there was a lot of different data points that were being distilled and filtered. Even way back in the, 2014s, 2015, there's ample, even work I did with SAP, I knew that there was a lot of data that could be mined in social media networks, in developer communities, for example, in
Yeah.
in chat rooms, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of information that's residing in there. It's free. It's available
Mm,
for you to bring it up and use to your advantage. And so it was possible, but it was very time consuming, and people were not very much willing to step out of the proverbial comfortable zone to, discover something that could be uh, different, right? And so one was that desire to create something that was a little bit different.
mm,
And and I think the other compelling reason was that it could really help a lot of different salespeople that genuinely wanted to be better salespeople,
mhm.
that were working hard and so on, but did not have the skill sets, the time, and the resources to be able to act like the big 1%, 5% top tier President's Club member guys
Yeah. Yeah.
who have a lot of finesse built into a lot of different things. And so by being able to provide insights that and then help you formulate a strategy, execution becomes a lot easier. And that's where we formulated this platform, which was in the area of insights and being able to help you develop strategies so that salespeople can then go and execute like the top 1% do. Right. So there were two overwhelming factors behind this.
So I'd love to ask you a question on that because there's a lot of, and you mentioned President's Club, and there's obviously the top 1% of salespeople that I think AI might even help them become even better than that. But from a selling point of view, and I love asking this question around how much is technology not so much replacing the salesperson, but how much can technology such as AI enhance a salesperson's capability? And can we take almost like an ordinary salesperson and turn them into some superstar based on the AI technology that's available to us today?
Yeah, so I think there is definitely an uplifting potential. Sales is still sales, and at the end of the day, it is still human. Like even in the modern day sales cycle, you have between 14 to 24 people that you have to convince,
Yeah.
right? Some people you never meet. So you need to go through intermediaries, your
Mhm.
champions, so to speak, to get them to talk to those people. And you don't know how their personalities might align or not,
Yeah.
for example, right? So it's a complex. minefield that you have to negotiate to be able to close a deal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So um, yeah, I mean, we need to be able to uh, yeah, please go ahead. I mean, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm phasing out a little bit right now. I should
Well,
be having
it's the end of a
long.
long
Yeah,
day.
but go ahead. Ask me that question if you don't mind.
No, no, I was just really curious because I hear a lot of people using and thinking about AI, how it's going to be the elixir that changes
Yeah,
everything for us, right? But at the end of the day, my own belief is you still have to have some fundamental good selling skills
sales
because
capabilities. Yeah,
yeah, so as you mentioned, sales is still a human to human interaction. So one of the, and I'd like to ask you about this as well in terms of your thoughts around AI replacing certain roles within sales, or as you said before, whether it really is an augmentation of the intelligence that we've got within our sales team. So just firstly touch on your thoughts around I guess uplifting the salesperson's capability
yeah,
and whether it can be the difference that makes all the difference. And we'll sort of delve into
yeah,
whether this is going to replace people.
yeah. Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, it is still human instinct and human desire that will actually raise you to the top. What AI will help you do is it will get you there faster, will help you with a lot more data points. It will help you with decision support capabilities, which will
Yeah,
be much more intellectually well thought through. It will help you with communication that is much better, well written, and so on. So yes, in that regard, it will help you reach up. But at the end of the day, it's got to be the people who needs to be able to grasp
yeah,
how to encapsulate. Now, the good thing is, for example, we take prompt libraries. We've made prompt libraries of the most frequently kind of used prompts to make generative AI happen, right? So your question earlier was, did I think that AI was going to be the one that was going to really change things around? No. But I had an idea that if we had all these different data points together, it would be good to be able to have some capability. I didn't know exactly what it would look like, where I could simply ask it, like Siri, can you go and just fetch this information
yeah,
and put this together with that information and give me this answer,
yeah.
right? I knew that was, we didn't call it generative AI, but we were building along the lines of how could we have machine learning
Mm,
algorithms that could, or querying languages and large language models, etc. We were doing that. And then this suddenly erupted in November, and that just made our life a whole lot faster and easier, right? So that's how we can accelerate it into where we are. But the thinking was there that AI would allow you to actually have that augmented intelligence part of it, right? So yes, that augmented intelligence does elevate the capability. um and what was the next part of your question,
Well,
please?
the next part of this, because as you were talking, I'm thinking, okay, um, AI creates, I guess, speed, and
Yes,
no more time in history than right now. The speed is a key, in many cases, a differentiator. So it's enabling us to get lots and lots of information in a quick time, and it's intelligent information.
yes.
But I'm
And
still thinking though
yeah,
through the human element. I
yes,
can plug all this information in. I
yes,
still have to have a conversation though with a
yeah.
person.
The role of sales is changing. That's what your question is, I think,
Yeah,
at the end of the day. The role of sales is definitely changing. So it's going from mastery of your product to mastery of presenting a solution within. And I know this has also been said for the last 20 some years, value-based selling and so
yeah,
on, master how you sell the solution. And to sell the solution, you need to put it into the context of the full big picture and, frame it against everything else. And so that is actually true now,
mm,
right? And so all these companies are dealing with very complex infrastructure, whether that's in cybersecurity, whether that's in cloud storage, whether that's in introduction of AI, whether that's in any kind of new work that they're doing, record keeping to anything else. Everybody's got new data models that need to be looked at and refined, right? So the game is definitely changing, and we need to be able to leverage AI to help us
mm,
compute answers out of an industry. So, and when that happens, my role will change into becoming more of a value added advisor.
mm,
And so a salesperson will earn big ticket marks. They will use AI as a tool for them. And they will be educated in the sense of really being able to put a lot of the jigsaw pieces together from a financial perspective, industry perspective, competitive market intelligence perspective. The other thing that's going to happen, and I see happening a lot, is the merger of the sales and the demand generation role.
Yeah.
Increasingly, these two are coming together and being merged. Salespeople are being asked to do demand generation.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's been a challenge for many years because you've got your marketing team and your sales team. Often, even though they're wearing the same colors, the for all intents and purposes, they're often on a different team because they're pointing the finger at each other. So that's really important. They have to come together because the messaging to the marketplace has to be consistent. And
And,
the
and
one, yeah,
and that's another area where AI can help a lot, right? It can help. I mean, that depends on corporate policy. What is corporate policy? Do we want to give demand generation to salespeople?
mm,
Maybe so, right?
yeah,
And if that's the case, then we want to enable them to be able to act somewhat like marketing people,
mm,
right?
yeah,
At least speak the language of marketing people, right? And AI can help you cross that gap
yeah,
very easily, right?
yeah, yeah.
It
Ab-
can get those sales guys to be writing out emails that are brand compliant, factually correct, and still personalized enough,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Now, and the other question I had around this was because I talked to a lot of people around, well, I guess people's fears or uncertainties around what's going to happen because many of them have watched that very famous movie, The Terminator, and they think, oh, Skynet's going to take over the world, and all we're going to be replaced by cyborgs. Um, based on the work, because you're deep inside this. So in terms of looking at, I guess, the future and the fact that sales as a profession is changing and adapting, and the salespeople's roles are different. Can we see a time where certain roles within the sales, I guess, ecosystem do get replaced by AI? Or do you think it's still going to be a case of it will supplement or augment a sales role or some form of role within the sales ecosystem?
So I can only speak around sales and marketing. AI
Yeah.
has become extremely pervasive to be able to talk intelligently about what's going to happen somewhere else. In my opinion, yes, there are going to be roles that will be replaced entirely by AI. And what AI also allows you to do is, as I said, the nature of sales will metamorphose. It will change.
Yeah.
It will go from being, it'll still be relationship sales, but the currency of how you build the relationship is going to be different than going to a baseball game versus helping them whiteboard and think through how their business processes will improve, how their business will profit more, how they will grow. Those are the factors that will make you a better salesperson right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? In whatever area, how do you make a firewall more secure, for example? You got to
Yeah.
be able to sell that. And those are big, tall orders for salespeople to, you need a solution engineer, you
Mm,
need a copywriter, you need a researcher, you need a sales assistant. You need four roles today to
mm,
help a salesperson. And those are tall orders. AI can fill all those roles,
yeah. Yeah.
right? All those four roles it can do, and it can do it at a microsecond. It will never complain. It works 24/7.
It doesn't complain.
Seriously, ask it whatever you want to ask it. Keep generating emails 1 million times. It'll generate it 1 million times, right?
Well, and here's a question I'd like to ask you, particularly in the sales area, because if you take things like ChatGPT, and I know for a fact there are a number of university students, there are a number of high school students, there are a number of people that are applying for roles that are using AI in some form to do their resume, do the application letter. And people are becoming it's almost like, well, everybody's using ChatGPT. So does that mean the level of commonality now is at a certain level that how do we now differentiate? Um, if we put ourselves in the shoes of the customer, and we're going to talk about sales and marketing specifically. So I'd like to talk about the sales process here. Um, but from a customer point of view, looking at everybody who now has access to some form of AI, what do you think is happening to the level of credibility in the eyes of customers where they know that the people they're talking with are probably using AI to a high degree to try and increase the level of knowledge of the customers to try and get better sales, high levels of influence. Is that going to have a detrimental impact on relationships, do you think?
So two parts. So I think not all AI is equal, and there are different results that you get from different sets of AI. Curated AI, looking at business specific, personality specific news and combining it into a professional response is one kind of AI versus ChatGPT, which is a search engine at the one end and a research and a copywriting tool at the other end. So you'll get different sets of results out of that. The credibility of the person writing this, I don't believe so. I'll tell you what. Again, it's a generational answer. I think that if I were to be really cranky and critical, I probably would. Um, and I am a cranky and critical personality in nature. So, but, but, but I'm also flattered by the fact that somebody's actually researched me rather
Yeah,
than those guys that have showed up unprepared. The
yeah,
guys that really, really turned me off and then that are deal stoppers are the ones that show up totally unprepared. They
yeah.
don't know your name. They don't know your company's name. They don't know what you do. They're selling you your own product to yourself. They're just extremely, really ill-prepared people, right? And that's the biggest turn on. So if somebody's applied AI to find out who I am and can, behave in a better manner, I will listen to them.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that's what you need in today's day to be able to enter the door.
yeah.
I think that's table stakes.
I think it's an interesting point. I remember back when I was in sales, and this is back in the 1990s. You used to be able to go into a senior executive's office, and one of the first killer questions you could ask them was, "Hey, tell me all about your business." And they thought this was fantastic because you were showing interest. And the next question was, "Well, what keeps you up at night?" So we're trying to understand what their fears, uncertainties, and doubts were. Um, Albeit like 5 years later, going into the same office, if you asked the same question, they would have turned around and said, "Hey, there's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. Make sure the door's closed behind you. Don't ever come back." And so the expectation now is that with there's so much information available, you've got to do your research. But I'm just keep because I hear a lot from people who are using AI and the way they're speaking about it, it's almost like, hey, I don't have to work as hard anymore because I have a computer or I've got an algorithm that can actually give me all this information. And it's almost like they're saying we're removing the human element from it. But my view is you've still got to have a conversation, you've still got to build a relationship with a person because whether you're using AI to supplement what you're doing, people still buy from people.
Absolutely. And the way AI should work in that is that it will brief you. It will make suggestions in terms of recommend this is how your sales page could be. It could be that it could even write down that sales pitch if you wanted it to be written down.
Yeah,
It could do the email as well. But the idea is that people, the biggest hurdle is coming up with that initial idea. That's 80%, 90% of my time is blocked up in that first 45 minutes. Once I get it, then things can move, pretty
yeah,
fast.
yeah,
Now, these these GPTs, these XIQs, what they do is they take that cycle and they bring up brilliant ideas, well thought through, fully integrated with how you want to communicate within 3 seconds or less,
yeah,
right? Now you do the rest of the process, but instead of what used to take you 90% of the time, you've just shrunk it and
yeah,
made it like if it took you 40 minutes to do something along those lines, you've just brought it down to 3 seconds,
yeah,
right? So now you can actually invest more in that last percent, which is like fine tuning and send it out, right? And the chances of you getting a hit, because there's a lot of statistical analysis also going in terms of what kind of subject it's recommending, which personality is getting which subject line, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's doing those kind of computational analysis as well in terms of getting you to have higher open rates on the
mm,
one hand, right? So it's sending it out much more intelligently on the one hand. The other hand, it is writing it out. Now, at the end of the day, you should look at the ability to be able to control this and fire it at will, right? Your will, once
yeah,
you've decided what you want it to say,
yeah,
right? And it'll say it much. I pretty much write all my emails myself. Then I have our Gilroy bot, rewrite it. then look at it, the way it's written it, and 99% of the time, 98% of the time, I like how it's done it, and I take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Nice. So if we talk about the average salesperson, because you mentioned before it's the importance of where to start and how a lot of the time might be in terms of the strategy or thinking about what's the best way to break the ice or to get some level of interest. And all of this can be done really, really quickly. If we talk about the average salesperson at the beginning of a sales cycle, what kind of information can XIQ provide? Because you do talk about psychology and you've got some stuff on your website that talks about Formula One, understanding, I guess, buyers personas and so forth. Um, so where does a salesperson start? So somebody who is relatively new to B2B sales, and they might be in the cybersecurity phase. Where does it start in terms of plugging in information? Because there's so much to cover.
Yeah. So first of all, it's conversational. So you can ask it any question and you can pick up the conversation with it anytime, any place. So it could start with, for example, I'll give you one of our live examples. We were looking for companies that are laying off salespeople. And so we said our target audience is Fortune 1000 companies
Yep.
in these particular industries. These give us Fortune 1000 companies that losing, are laying off salespeople, right? So it listed down a list of 100 companies that were laying down those salespeople.
Hmm.
Then we said, okay, how could we position ourselves? Because there's an aspect of XIQ where you can load up your own product literature and it can read what your product does. And
Yep.
then based on what your product does, it has also been able to analyze what the client's pain points and challenges are and their business model is, because we get all the news, we get the annual reports, we get what the C-level executives are saying. We analyze that to make up a analysis on the company,
Hmm.
and we can use that analysis along with the analysis of our product to match which product would actually help them the most in which order.
Yep.
Not only can it do that, it can also write down my initial value proposition. It can also prioritize that in which companies would be most willing to go through and buying on this. It can also tell me what could be subject matters that I could use in order to approach them. Like, should I talk about doing more with less? Now that you're losing salespeople,
Yep.
you need to be able to optimize your sales force, you know? So it can actually help, give me an idea of what my campaign should look like. What should I say to them? So the salesperson can start by, it can also say, now, who are the decision makers? Tell me the job titles in company ABCD. It will pull out those job titles. It can keep going further and tells me, hey, Darren is one of those people. Tell me how I should talk to him, right? What are key things I should
There's a
say to him?
camera. There's a camera somewhere here.
Yeah, right. So, it can keep going. That's the point, that now I have a virtual uh, place where I can simulate a lot of what's going to happen in my sales environment by simply asking,
Yeah.
and I get 8, 9 out of 10 times that it's actually right.
And when you think about that, because even 10 years ago, a lot of that work, a lot of that research was manual,
Manual
and
still
yet,
is.
and it took a lot of time to do that, right? We're now saying it's a compared to what it was, it's a microsecond in terms of that, and the
Mhm.
accuracy rate is very, very high.
And the universe is much bigger as well. So the data points it's analyzing are much bigger,
Yeah.
and it's doing it much faster. And as you're saying, much more accurate.
Yeah.
And
So
it's part of conversation. I can just ask.
yeah,
Boom.
absolutely. And so then when you get into then the deeper and deeper elements of a company that is in your Fortune 1000, for example, because one of the things we talk about and you talk about is the psychology and the buyer psychology. So the type of personality that person might be, what their buying traits may be. Can it also go through and analyze? Because one of the big things I talk to salespeople all the time about is identifying your informal influencing or the power map in terms of who influences who's connected to who's a blocker, who's a advocate, etc., etc. Can we go into that depth based on available information?
Yes, indeed. So we have introduced the concept of buyer relationship management. And by that, what we mean is you can compose people into a group, and based on their psychometric placement, they're added to three columns, if you may, those of the doers,
Yeah.
those of the coaches, and those of the blockers.
Okay.
Now, and then below that, we've created four rows, if you may, decision makers, champions, technical buyers, economic buyers.
Okay.
So now you can drag and drop those people and place notes around these people and around this organogram that you build of who's who and who are potentially natural blockers. And then so now you've laid down your chess pieces on the board, so to
Mm,
speak.
mm.
Literally, it's exactly that. And now you can start moving those pieces around and formulate your strategy. And you can leave notes. You can collaborate with your entire team members.
Man, and I think back to the days where we had great big account teams sitting in boardrooms trying to analyze this, and it was literally, so Usman, who do you know within this organization, and what do you think their personality type is? And it was all this, I guess, subjective information, much of which was not necessarily factually correct, but it was based on a perception that this person might have had with short interactions, not long-term relationships. Now we're saying, based on all the different data points, you've got this opportunity of building a fairly good picture of what your ideal customer looks like, and the accuracy rate is pretty high.
That's correct. It's a different time, and people expect that. I mean, I want and the younger the generation, the higher their expectations are as well. By
It's frightening.
we are the skeptical guys. We're from the skeptical generation. Those guys are like, I want more, right?
Yeah.
That's totally different end of the spectrum.
Well,
And
look,
so,
probably, yeah, it probably comes back to what you said before, the limits of your imagination and the limits of your physical reality. So you think, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you was what the future is, but I'll hold that for a second. I want to come back to the human element. So we've got all of this information. At some point, there will be a conversation or there'll be a pitch. So one of the I guess challenges that I've been grappling with is if we can make good use of the artificial intelligence tools such as XIQ, how do I now continue to be educated on that so I can understand what the system's telling me so that when I'm having a conversation with the customer, I do have the level of credibility because I've got all this information. I'm not just hand picking and giving them that information that AI has generated. How can I maintain my human credibility with that? Because, and the reason I say that is I've seen a lot of people use and rely upon AI, but when it comes time being asked a question about the information they've gathered, they're falling short. They don't really know because it hasn't been them, quote unquote, that's done the research, that's done the proposal, that's written the email or whatever. And so they kind of get found out a little bit. So how do we best utilize this so that we can maintain our human credibility?
yeah. So first of all, I think we're going to continue to assume that the sale is still going to be humans to humans, and I think it will be in large ticket items and so on.
Hmm.
And when you have humans to humans, likability is a big factor,
Yeah,
right? It's a very unpopular thing to mention these days, and I might be going woke and getting canceled on your show as a result of saying this. But let's face it, likability is a factor.
it is.
So that doesn't go away. The logic of how you sell doesn't go away. What comes into play with AI is the ability to get briefs. So a good AI will actually be able to break that RFP, that complex RFP down in a manner that your salesperson can actually sound genuinely educated about it. Now, I don't expect my sales guy to come and teach me how to run my business, but what I expect my sales guy to do is be able to introduce me to somebody or be able to talk to something that shows me how I can improve my game,
Yeah,
right? That's how I'm not looking at them. They're the silver bullet that's going to come into my life. All I'm looking for them is, hey, do you guys understand what we do? And if you understand, is there a way that you can show us how you solve the sample
yeah,
problem, right?
yeah,
And if 9 out of 10 guys don't understand what they do, they don't bother to find out. And that's where this tool can simplify and break it down. Hey, this is what these guys do. This is what their main pain points are. Verify that. Okay. He reads two paragraphs. Hopefully, if you can't read two paragraphs, then you need to question other things, right?
Well, the other thing with AI now is you can actually give it some parameters to say, hey, give me the key points I need to know within 100 words or 150 words or whatever the case might be. What are the key points, key dot points? And that's the key thing I wanted to make mention of is that sometimes I can think people will rely too heavily on what they think is the artificial intelligence and forget the fact that they still have to bring credibility and, as you say, likability to the transaction because you might have the greatest amount of information, but if I cannot have a conversation and build a relationship, then none of that is actually going to be worth anything.
Yeah. I cite an example of television newscasters.
Yeah,
So I'm living in the United States. So Peter Jennings, Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather, these are the big names, Ted Koppel, these are the
yeah,
big names. If you look at them, extremely dignified gentlemen, that really fit the bill. But what they were also they were able to very much convince people on the accuracy of the information. They were selling information. That's what they did,
yeah,
right? So it was there. So the human level, a machine could have read that set of news as well, right? But having Ted Koppel or Walter Cronkite or Dan Rather or Peter Jennings be able to make the way they present it added a lot of credibility and weightage to that.
mm,
Sales is very similar in that regard. You need to have somebody that you can hold responsible, or at least that has convinced you that, hey, I know this thing is going to work,
yeah,
right, for you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so they need that part on the one hand. So that's never going to go away. The logic of how you sell and how people decide, that's not going to go away.
mm,
What's going to go away is that the number of data points that get sucked into making those decisions is going to be significantly higher.
yeah,
The people who are evaluating are people, the guys I sell into are people that know more about what's happening in my sales ecosystem than my sales guys do, easily.
yeah, yeah,
There is only myself and maybe two, three other people in my company who have that vast knowledge about what's happening in the sales world. And
yeah,
this is your average customer that we're selling to. He has that much knowledge these days,
yes, yes,
right? So I need to be able to upscale my team to be able to have that conversation with this person
yeah,
in an easy manner. So they
yeah,
understand what they're saying and not losing all that stuff, right?
absolutely. Because if we're on the sales and marketing side using AI, the same technology is going to be available to the buyers, right? So they can quite easily use the same technology to evaluate all of the vendors that are proposing solutions to them to come up with their own parameters to do exactly the same thing as what we're doing to them. So it should actually result in better business deals, more accurate outcomes, and hopefully increase the level of success that when we choose the right solution, there's a higher probability that the promises that we're making through the sales process can be delivered.
So my friend Darren, that's already happening. What is the RFI process, request for information process?
Mm,
They capture everything from buyer, please tell me about your product. They capture everything from everybody. They put it together and then they send it back as an RFP, and then they
yeah,
expect you to respond, which is a hybrid of what they've captured from every. I like this from this guy, I like this from this guy, I like that from this guy, and then they compose that together. So now the AI can actually do that much faster. You don't have to wait weeks for those guys to figure it out. You can just plug it in, get the response right away, and you can be on your way a lot
yeah,
faster, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I think, and the time threshold is a big threshold,
Mm,
right? I mean, those sort of things, it's just a computational speed advantage.
yeah, yeah,
It's not a strategic advantage. It's just like, hey, it used to take me 6 hours to do that. I can do that in 3 seconds.
yeah,
Boom, done.
yeah.
Right? Okay, fine. Right. And the point is, it used to take me 6 hours. I never sat 6 hours in one place. So it never used to get done. Much higher likelihood.
Does that mean I can now spend more time playing golf?
There you go. That's exactly what you should be doing.
So
I
it's
was in
interesting.
the
Yeah, go.
jacuzzi
Sorry.
the other day. Sorry, I was in the jacuzzi the other day, and this guy got in there and he said, they just calculated that if you sit 20 minutes, you'll burn 120 calories. Like, guys, this is the wrong reason to be in there, right? So,
Well, it's
sorry, go
interesting you
ahead.
mentioned the the time computation versus the strategic value. So let's talk about that because a lot of organizations will think that if I can shave 5 hours or 6 hours off um, a piece of work that I have to do to get prepared for a proposal or presentation, whatever the case might be, that has strategic value. So, what are you saying that that is not necessarily strategic value?
No, I'm saying that, look, the preparation part, somebody else, this tool can do that for you. But you need to go to the next question and the next question after that and the next question, not the question itself, but the next stage. And you need to get there in a much more well-rehearsed, well-researched manner. And these tools can save, it doesn't absolve you of reading it and understanding what's written in there and having the editorial power. I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
All I'm saying is getting it to the point where you can exercise, even if it's like taking three different proposals generated by AI and combining that into one, you can do that in a small fraction of the time it would have taken you to do three of those different stages.
yeah. And the question there is, what is that worth to you as an organization, to you as an individual, but ultimately to the customer if you can actually customize something and bring a solution that's quicker to solve the problem if you've articulated what that problem is.
You get your customer to basically say, you understand my business, and that's
Yeah,
when you win the deal, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, from your perspective, in the work that you're doing at XIQ, we talked about sales marketing, how often the salespeople now have to be more involved in the demand generation and so forth. From your experience, have you seen and will you continue to see the role of the sales leader changing as it relates to all this technology that's available? So, does it change? Has it changed? Will it continue to change? And will, for example, the sales leader still be as relevant in the sales cycle and the sales ecosystem as perhaps they have been with AI here?
Let, let me ask you a question. So there are certain myths that I don't understand in sales and marketing. So one of those myths is, get me a contact directory, get me phone numbers and emails.
Yeah.
Man, if you get me phone numbers and emails, this is it. And two things. First of all, this is what? That you take your cookie cutter approach and apply it to now those phone numbers that I paid for to get to you, right? You start mass producing your cookie cutter approach across that. Is that what you're going to do? Or I'm going to buy a database where the phone numbers, 70% of the phone numbers are front desk numbers,
Mm,
right? And most of the emails are 30% of the emails are obsolete because people have left their jobs.
yeah.
But the market is obsessed. The sales and marketing industry is obsessed with these. The amount of money that is spent on procuring these obsolete leads that don't allow you to do anything but actually magnify your lack of understanding, so to speak. Right? That's what those lists do. People spend a lot of money on that. So
Yeah.
the strategy part is definitely going to be in the hands of the player, but the speed is definitely a big factor. Uh, People that can come up with a solution earlier and get mind share. It's a
Yeah.
thing towards mind share. It's
Yeah.
a matter of who can say, nobody really cares if you use the tool to, if the juice tastes good, it tastes good. If it helps you make money, it helps you get to a decision. If you're making logical sense, good for you.
Mm,
Those are the table stakes.
yeah.
We're dealing with smart people at the other end. The buyers are extremely smart people. The companies will entrust them with multi-million-dollar buying decisions,
Mm,
right? They're they've proven something to the world in order to get to that position to have that, right? You
yeah.
can't treat them with a one size fit all paintbrush.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the role then what you're saying is the sales leader still has strategic oversight, making sure people have ticked all the boxes, got their ducks lined up, done all their research, formulating the approach. So there will be a role. Because one of the things somebody said to me the other day is, oh, because of AI and it gets more and more intelligent, will companies need a sales leader, a manager of the people, or could the technology manage and do what a sales leader does today?
So scorecarding and measuring performance. We have a thing, we call it sales readiness index. How much is your tool being used? We have certifications built into that. The more you use it, you get certified. You can be a AI certified salesperson as well on our tool. So those are this gamification build leaderboards, etc. So those are already in play that are
Yeah.
coming over there.
Yeah.
But you still need a sales leader. A sales leader puts the vision together, the strategy together. The insights and the strategy have to come together somewhere.
Mm.
And yes, I would love to have these computers and the AI around me, but I want to be in a position to make a decision with the select, people in my team, because there are things that, and I want there to be very well thought through data
Yeah.
coming my way, right? I
Yeah.
really wanted to be able to analyze it. And I don't want to look at 6,000 things just, written. I just wanted a few things that have been very focused and provided to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, the sales leader is a very important role. I don't think that goes away. This is a person that, yeah, I don't, especially in the larger business, this sales leader doesn't go away.
Mm. No, I don't.
People are in more of the commodity kind of businesses, people, the surveys and everything are saying they want a salesperson less
Yes.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are so many companies that are trying to encourage their customers to have self-service. So they've set them up with access to bots and so forth that you don't have to talk to a human being. But I guess maybe I'm old school, mate. Maybe I'm old school to the point where I would much rather have still today a conversation with a human being rather than, unless it's some really low level commoditized stuff, rather than talk to a bot.
So let me just tell you. So I last year I bought a Tesla,
Hmm.
and the Tesla was a pretty much humanless experience. And
Okay.
I've changed a lot of cars in my life, and I hated every time I had to go to the car dealership. I was like in a very foul mood. It's just really, really bad experience every single time, like 20 times, right? And then I went through this experience, and it was the most pleasant, stressless experience of my life. It really was. And it happened like this. At times I was like, am I even doing the right thing? Maybe I should talk to a human, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because it's a big ticket purchase, but
yeah.
it worked beautifully. It was great service. We focused on the right things. When the guys came to deliver the car, they spoke on the right things. It wasn't like negotiations. Will you wait in the room while I go talk to my manager? None of the garbage was. It was like totally like, think about it. Those were humans that were treating you in the most obscene manner. You don't want
Yeah.
to be treated like some freaking, qualification thing, right? Uh, Whereas here, it was, they made me feel great.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's not a small purchase.
no, no, and you think, well, you're buying a car. And I love the reference. I mean, are you saying in the state, Usman, that there are some dodgy car salespeople out there?
No, I never said that.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because often people ask me, I don't, because not a lot of people like to be sold to, and I often ask the question when I'm running workshops, who likes to be sold to, and very rarely do people put their hand up. But I also say, and it sounds like a little bit of something counterintuitive. I say, you know what? Some of the best salespeople I know are actually in car sales. And they're not the dodgy car sales people that you think they are. They actually build a relationship and make you feel good for having made that purchase. And there's loyalty that gets developed because then you want to recommend other people to go and see this person because it's almost like the antichrist. This is not the average salesperson. So they can actually be good people.
Absolutely correct. I've had two experiences which were phenomenal people, and they told me, don't take this model because it's version one and it'll be buggy by nature. So wait till version two comes out. So I've had that happen, and those are great people. And I know that SAP used to have a lot of salespeople like that
Yeah,
that used to really guide people through the process. Hey guys, I
yeah,
won't recommend this, but wait, this will happen, right?
yeah.
And those are the ones that really do the big ticket sales.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that keep getting referrals and referrals and referrals, and
Yeah.
they stay. They've got longevity as well because they're
Yeah.
they're there for service.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But
So go. Sorry, you were going to say something else?
no, no, no. You please.
I was just gonna say, based on all of that, I can't I can't wrap this up without asking a question about the future. So, if you think about AI, it's relatively recent in terms of the evolution of AI. You mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that the limits of our imagination literally represent the limits of the physical reality as we see it today. As a person that's deep inside the world of AI and working on things, what do you see the future as? And when I say the future, I'm not talking 50 years, but I mean that could be a completely different stratosphere altogether. But how do you see AI continuing to evolve, even in the next 3 to 5 years? What do you think is possible?
Yeah. So, I mean, from a feature perspective and so on, all these digital twins will appear. There'll be simulation capabilities that will be available. And as you said, AI on both sides, the seller side as well as the buyer side, equating those things. That's definitely going to happen. But I think the profession per se is going to evolve quite a bit and for the better. And it is a good salesperson is actually a treat to watch,
Yeah,
right? To your point about what you were saying, some of the best salespeople may have been car salesmen,
yeah,
but a good salesman is also a treat to watch.
yeah.
And they can lead you, they tell great stories, they lead you down the track and so on. So I think it's the idea is how can you make better salespeople? Also, lingua franca is going to move away from what used to be really, really pure storytelling to more professional type of storytelling. So I do see a much more uh, television broadcast kind of an environment in sales
Okay.
happening, right?
Yeah.
I don't see people meeting that often. I think the video is going to, it's just already blown up. It's just going to continue to blow up even more. I think that the response time to certain things that, will be a lot faster. Your RFP responses will be done in minutes, in seconds, and they'll be placed in front of you in such a manner that, pulling from the best repositories all over the place. So um, I think it will cater to people demanding more in terms of how things will benefit them.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's going to be a more, I hope, let's put it this way, but I believe in it's going to be a much more humane experience, right? It's
Nice.
really going to be not ultra, I want to snatch this and put this away. It's going to be much more cooperative. I think,
Yeah.
the beauty of where we are as the first set of humans that are dealing with the AI induction wave into professional, that, those possibilities are literally endless. Whatever you can think of today, pretty much AI can get you to that in some way or the other,
Yes.
right? And so and that means that your current processes, what used to take so much time, will collapse into seconds, and therefore you will have to think on what does this new process looks like. And there'll be a lot of things that were in best practices that you never had the time to do, but were taught for best practices that will now actually come back,
Yeah.
right? Like you should know what is a SWOT in a company. Boom, 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 right? You
Yeah.
should know who the CEO is and what they've talked about, right? Like those kind of little briefings, like watching little TikTok videos that will come up and tell you, hey, you're going into this meeting, check this out. Clip, okay, ready. I feel like I know who this person is.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Nice. So it's it's not to be afraid of. It's to be embraced.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's silly to be afraid of these sort of things because it's irreversible process, number
Yeah.
one. Number two, it's really non-life threatening, right? Number three, the smart guys are using it to really pull up the distance between themselves and everybody else.
Yeah.
Because look, you know, if I can get highly personalized service to one account using all my manual methods in 1 month, what about if I could do that to 15 accounts in a day?
Mm.
All power to me. I'll be a rich guy.
You will, and you'll separate yourself from everybody else that's still trying to do stuff from the 1990s.
Exactly. Right? I mean, it's just, it's going to change very, very fast.
Mm.
The haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Brilliant, brilliant. Hey, Usman, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm also conscious that you've been up for a long, long time, so you probably need some rest. So for the people that are listening to this, is there one last piece of I guess advice around this that you'd like to leave them, particularly if they're in a sales role or particularly in a sales leader's role?
Yeah. Um, I'll say intellectual honesty, right? The best thing that can happen is, have that intellectual honesty about the decisions that you're going to take. And that's where tools like AI can really, really help you.
Yeah,
You can look at things in a fairly non-biased manner,
yeah,
right? They're basically all AI works on numbers and stuff like that. So you can look at it from that perspective. And intellectual honesty can go a lot, it can save you a lot of time.
yeah,
It can cut through a lot of chatter, and it will make you, I think, and make us a better human race by being able to say, we've got to be a little bit careful and sensitive, but we've got to be able to tell it exactly how it is. I think
mm,
sales leaders more so than ever, because time is money. You got to know where you're placing your bets,
yeah.
and you need
Absolutely.
to have tools that can help you become intellectually honest.
Love it.
Evaluate everything: the news, the financials, the share prices, investor relations. Put all of that together. Salespeople simply don't have the bandwidth and the
Yeah,
business acumen and the skill sets to do that. You need
yeah,
analysts to do that. AI can do that and put it in a language that anybody can understand. That's the big difference.
yeah,
And we need to embrace. Don't think about it as a threat. Think about it as a realm of possibilities of what it can do. And the hope it creates, everything that you can apply AI to, it's a whole new business model way of doing things, right? So there's a
yeah,
lot of hope. There should be a lot of hope. The world is going to grow in ways. There's going to be a whole new economy that will open up on new models that
yeah,
we don't even know what they will look like,
yeah,
right? So embrace it. Be the first ones to drive those.
yeah. Love it. Love it. So, for people listening to this, if they'd like to connect with you, learn more about you and also XIQ, where's the best place for them to connect and learn more about what you do?
So in both cases, in my case, LinkedIn, Usman, USMAN, Sheikh, SHEIKH, with XIQ on LinkedIn, and then XIQ Inc., XIQINC on LinkedIn, and xiqinc.com is our website. So
Beautiful.
that's where you'd find us. Yeah,
Excellent. Mate, thank you so much for staying up. I know it's a
I
back end of
apologize
Monday.
that a few places I kind of, your questions were long and I kind of lost it a little bit. Like, what was he asking? So, but thanks for bringing me back and chopping those down into smaller bite size. Like,
No,
hey,
I
because
appreciate
I had, like the way it was going is like, I had the answer to the first part of the question, but by the time you go to the end of the question, I forgot what the first part was.
I appreciate the feedback because it when I because as I showed you beforehand, I don't have questions written down, so I just the
It's
questions
all
come up
cool.
and I like the feedback that yeah, shorten the questions, Darren.
No, I think I, I was a little bit tired, and two, but it was a great conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. I think it was. Uh, this is I like talking. You know the business. You know what's happening in the industry, and AI is going to help, and it's good to have this conversation. I
It
think
is. It is.
anything we can do to kind of move the profession upwards is going to be helpful.
Definitely. I agree. And a great way to finish the podcast. My friend, all the way from California, thank you so much for being a guest on the Exceptional Sales Letter podcast.
Thank you so much, Darren. Appreciate it. All
Thanks.
the best.
All the best, mate.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Letter podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.